Hey everybody, welcome back to the Tales of the Pod podcast. My name's Michaela, I'm your host.
We're co-host Nick. How's it going, guys?
So this week, I'm excited for this week's episode because we are going to be discussing B-movies.
Yes, we are. That's my favorite.
Which, Nick, do you want to explain what a B-movie is?
Well, there's like a lot of different, I don't know, just like looking it up and like trying to narrow down a definition for what a B-movie is. There's kind of a lot of things that kind of make up a B-movie. One example is like a movie that never made it to theaters. It was like directly to video.
Right.
Another one is just like a movie that is like poor quality. There's really no story, like definitive storyline or plot to the movie. It just kind of makes kind of no sense, and more kind of just a rambling in a movie sense. And then there's a couple other things that can make a B movie on like production cost and everything.
Yeah, definitely
like
a
that.
low cost kind of thing.
Yeah, like if the budget for the movie was like $1,000 and it's considered a B movie.
Right.
So yeah, there's a few things that make it, but to me, a B movie I think is just something. I kind of agree with the definition of it's a one that never really made it in theaters, or if it did, it didn't do well in theaters, and it kind of maybe appalled people or made people, wish they didn't spend their money to go see it.
Right. Which is fair.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw online when I was trying to find like an actual definition of a B movie was basically like when you see it, you'll know kind of thing.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
think that's the best way to describe it is when you see a B movie, you just know. Like there's not really a good way to describe it.
There's no like definition. I think
just once you see it, you're like, okay, that's a B movie.
Yeah, you're gonna be like, oh, there's a giant spider from Mars attacking, Godzilla.
Or there's we watched one on Thanksgiving. It was a killer turkey Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving.
And it was a killer turkey killing everybody. Like, you see that and you're like, okay, this is obviously a B movie.
You're right. Poor acting.
Terrible acting, usually.
Yeah, it makes kind of no sense. It's just kind of all over the place.
Yes. But I like B movies. I think it's a nice relief from like the normal, high pace of like a scary movie. The suspense, the anxiety. I think B movies are a nice relief.
Yeah, they kind of almost are comedic in some sense, or just kind of
I'd say they're definitely comedic.
Oh my God, this is ridiculous. Why am I watching this? But you can't look away because it's still good.
And they're part of the genre. Like, they're a necessary part of the genre,
God,
I would say. Like, if you're going to be into scary movies, I think you should definitely appreciate some B movies because they're not all winners.
No, they definitely are not all winners.
They're not all The Exorcist. They're not all The Conjuring. Like, there's some...
Yeah,
there's some interesting ones.
Yes, exactly. And a lot of them, too, are movies that, I think some people wouldn't even consider B movies. They'd be like, oh, no, that was a good movie. But no, I guess, the budget was low and the acting, there were people, it's a B
And there's,
movie.
like, a gray area, too, I would say, between, like, B movies and cult classics.
Yes.
Because a lot of movies that are considered bad or not great are also considered cult classics.
Yes, but they're also B movies.
They're also B movies. So, I would like to do an episode, too, on cult classics because I have some in mind that are not B movies that would be cult classics.
Yeah.
But this week we wanted to touch specifically on B movies. So definitely like a fun episode, and I'm excited for it. Do you want to touch on yours first?
Yeah, I'll start with mine.
Oh, by the way, we're going to do a countdown. So we're going to do 10 of them, and we're going to count down from our least favorite to our most favorite.
Yeah, essentially that's how we're going to do it.
So 10 will be like our least favorite, and then work our way up.
Yeah. So the first one I picked was 1981's Absurd. It was also came out under the title. It came out actually. It had 4 different titles to it, but Anthropophagus 2, Zombie 6, Monster Hunter, Horrible, and The Grim Reaper 2. It's a 1981 slasher film directed by Joe D'Amato, starring George Eastman. It's an Italian movie, so you can kind of already get the sense that it's going to be kind of a B movie.
Right.
But essentially, it's actually it could be a very good story plot. It kind of reminded me, actually, we just saw The Omen, and it kind of reminded me, The Omen 2, it kind of reminded me of that plot, or The Omen 2 reminded me of this plot in a way, because basically what the plot is, George Eastman stars with this guy, Nikos Tatalousopoulos, super Italian Greek guy, and he was experimented on by the Vatican-sanctioned science experiment. So he was basically, it sounds kind of like the Omen plot. Basically, the Vatican sanctioned scientific experiments to be done on this guy, and he has this ability to heal his body after an injury.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, so it's a cool idea. not really 100% presented in the best of ways.
That's another thing with these movies too. Is sometimes it's a good idea,
yes,
but it's just they botch it. It's not well executed at all.
Yeah. So like he gets the surgery done. Mycos does, and it actually makes him go insane, and he starts just going on a killing rampage. And if for you guys who don't know, George Eastman, he's a pretty common in the foreign, like especially in the Italian horror movies. He's a big dude. He's like 6'5". He's a very big guy. So he kind of already fits the persona pretty good for being like a rampaging maniac.
Right.
And that's basically all the movie is. They're in America. I forget how he ends up in America, but it was happening in the Vatican where they were doing these experiments. But they end up in America somehow, and he's just going on a rampage, killing people. He ends up getting hit by a car, and by this family that's going to a Super Bowl viewing party, and after that, he regenerates because he can heal himself. He basically hunts them down and starts killing them. Meanwhile, the couple that hit him, their daughter and son are home being babysat, and the daughter is actually bedridden because she has some sort of spinal meningitis going on. And he eventually gets to their house and starts killing them. The little brother kind of has a premonition that the boogeyman's coming to get him, a.k.a. Mycos, George Eastman. He's the boogeyman, and it's a pretty gory movie, too. Joe D'Amato's like very well known for making a lot of splatter films and stuff like that.
Even for a low budget, it's pretty...
Yeah, there's a lot of like an intestinal, being pulled out and eaten, and, like decapitations, very gruesome, a lot of flesh peeling and stuff like that. And essentially, there's a priest also that's hunting him down. Milko's trying to kill him. The only way to kill him is typical kind of zombie-style movie. You have to destroy his brain. So, long story short, he ends up getting his brain destroyed, after a bunch of carnage is done. The movie ends, essentially, like that. So, it's a good one. It's one of my favorites. I do like watching it. The quality is really not that bad, but again, it just kind of doesn't make any sense, really. Like some of the stuff, it's kind of like a slow burn in some parts because, then it's dubbed over and the words aren't lining up with the mouth. And even if it's not dubbed over from Italian, it's still they're speaking English, but it's not lining up. Still, it's it's just poor quality, but. I mean, again, that's what you want in these kind of movies. If you're going to be a B-movie fan, you want
that's what's kind of
that
interesting. Is like in a high-quality movie, I feel like our standards are so high, but in a movie like this, our standards are so low, and we kind of want
you want it to kind of
shitty quality like and But like when you go see a movie in theaters, you're so such a hard critic on it. You're like, oh well, they did do this, this, and this, but then you watch the Ibsen movies, and it's like anything goes.
Yes,
really.
Exactly. So that is my number 10 here. So I'll give it over to you, Michaela.
So, my number 10 is definitely a personal favorite. I picked Basket Case, which, this is a 1982 American horror film. And essentially, it's about these two brothers that were born as conjoined twins. There's Dwayne and Bilal. I'm going to say Bilal. I think that sounds most right. And basically, they were separated from each other when they were conjoined. But Dwayne is like a full-grown man, and then Bilal is for some reason just like this mutant creature that didn't get to be. It was like, if you picture conjoined twins, right? But one of them is not fully formed as a human. It's just like I don't even know. It's no spine, no bones, kind of just flesh.
Yeah.
And they're pissed that they were separated, right? They were separated against their will when they were little. So basically the whole movie is them trying to take revenge on the doctors and nurses that did this surgery. Obviously doing the surgery out of their best interest. I mean, Dwayne would have been living his best life, conjoined from this thing.
Sure.
But since this thing is essentially just like a blob, Dwayne keeps it in literally a basket, like a picnic basket, and that's why it's called Basket Case.
Yeah, it's like a wicker basket.
It's literally a wicker basket, and he just keeps it in his apartment, and you just have this. It's just so crazy. The whole movie, he just has this little creature sitting in a basket, and they go around and they kill the nurses and doctors that conjoined or separated them.
Yep, just did the surgery on them.
And it's so crazy.
It's outrageous.
It really
outrageous movie because especially with because he lets the monster his brother, I guess, do all the killing. So every time he attacked, it was like, he just make this crazy noise and just jump out of the basket and fly on the person's face and start eating them. And
I'm gonna see if I can find
it's insane
a picture to show you guys because I feel like my describing it doesn't really do it justice. Mm-hmm. Hold on. Oh no, my little thing pops up.
Evildoer.
I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah, there's a little bit of glare,
But basically, just this creature, for some reason, he still has teeth.
Yeah.
But he's just like a pound of flesh living in this basket. And yeah, he just goes around and kills people in New York City. And
yeah, and he's got like a face, too. It's like a mound of flesh with a face. And yeah.
Yeah, they get a room at a cheap hotel and they just start tracking down all these surgeons. And yeah, they both resent just getting cut apart from each other. And it's just...
I know, it isn't like probably one of the most iconic B movies. When you think of B movie, you think Basket Case.
Like there's 3 of them. Like they made 3
movies. I didn't even know that.
They made 3 of these movies. And I just don't understand how they could even go on that long. But
sure.
I guess, the second one is they go back to the hospital. Third one, they're trying to hide from the authorities, which imagine being a cop and being like, yeah, it's a piece of flesh in a basket case and we're tracking down, like...
I know, right?
Better go catch him. Oh, I guess in the third one, he meets a female monster who looks just like him.
Oh.
He has libido on him, and they make love. Oh my god, we should watch that.
Oh, we gotta watch that.
They have a bundle of baby beasts.
Or that's got to be a Tubi. See if that's. I'll see
that's
if that's
probably on Tubi. I wonder if it shows them having sex.
Oh my god, it probably would. That's the thing too with B movies is like there's always going to be something like appalling like that. Like something like, oh my god, I can't believe they're showing that.
And it talks like it has like pretty much a mind of its own. Like it talks and everything. So
yes, exactly.
I could see. I guess if you were watching it, maybe like as a kid, I could see why it would be scary for some people. But I think for the most part, like they knew what they were doing.
Right.
The budget for this movie was only $35,000, and it went right to VHS or DVD maybe. No, probably VHS.
I think
in 1980.
It probably went VHS. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they made a ton of money. It's definitely considered a cult film for sure.
Definitely a cult classic for sure, and a lot of people that enjoy watching the Basket Case movie. All right, cool. So I will go out with my number 9, and this is actually, I probably should have put this one a little bit lower down, or I guess higher up in the list, but this is a 1984's Fall Break, otherwise known as The Mutilator. It's an American slasher film written and produced by Buddy Cooper. Basically, it's a typical B slasher movie, I think. A typical American B slasher movie. It's these. So basically, the movie starts out. It's a flashback. It's this one kid. He's in his dad's like hunting room, cleaning his rifle, and the kid's like 10 years old or something at this time, and he like points the gun at the door and shoots. And the mom's on the other side of the door in the kitchen baking like a cake for the dad's birthday. And the dad's not home. He's at work. So the mom instantly dies. The dad comes home immediately after and, finds that the son had shot the mom. And he's like, tells the son, get the hell out of here. He's pissed at him. And then drags the mom's body into the hunting room and, like, sits there and, like, gets drunk with the body. Ew. And then it cuts to present day. Yeah, it's super weird. It was, like, super weird. It cuts to, present day 1984, I guess. And, it's these kids sitting in a cafe, and they're like talking about going to the kid's dad's condo. He's all grown up now, but his dad's got this beach condo. I think it's somewhere in New Jersey, or no, I'm sorry, it's North Carolina. So they're all like, yeah, let's do it. So they get to the condo on the beach, and they're like, it's weird. The door's open and everything. They walk in, and there's like beer bottles and whiskey bottles everywhere. And it's like, oh, he must have just missed his dad. You know, like you don't really. There's no like kind of hint or anything like that about the dad in the movie, and until basically the dad starts killing all the kids. So he's got like some sort of like grudge that he held for 20 years against his son, and he's finally going to act his revenge. And it's insane. I mean, he kills people with a giant fishing hook.
Oh my god!
A chainsaw scene. And it's super gory too. This is like one of the like gorier B movies, and this is why it's one of my favorites. It's super gory and super corny too. There's a pickaxe. There's like a sword. He's got this huge like samurai sword he kills the kids with, and it's eventually like I think 2 of the kids survive, and they like are fighting him off, and at the end of the movie, like the dad gets backed into by a car. And he's like split in 2 pieces.
Of course.
And he's like laying in half. The cops are there. And at the very end of the movie, the dad comes back to life and cuts off one of the cops' legs with the sword.
As
and that just cuts the credit. Yeah, as he's in 2 pieces laying on the ground. So it's a classic, like, kind of comedic B movie. definitely one of my favorites. It's a super fun movie. Like a lot of people, I think, would enjoy it. Especially if you like the gore and the slasher aspect. Picking them off one by one, I should say. So that is my number 9.
I also just want to quickly apologize. Nick and I are kind of sick right now, so if you hear us like sneezing or sniffling or coughing or anything, just bear with us. I know I probably sound a little nasally.
Yeah, I think we got the flu or like sinus infections or something going on. So.
But, B movies deserve to be powered through, so
yes.
Here we are. But if you can hear in my mic, my sniffling and stuff, I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry if we're sniffling all the time or coughing.
I know, you were talking at one point, and I was trying so hard not to sneeze. I was like, please don't sneeze. Right. Okay, so for my number 9, I picked The Ice Cream Man, which came out in 1995, which we actually just rewatched this because I was like, I haven't seen this movie in a while, and I need to rewatch it. Mm-hmm. But it's in 1995. It actually is like a black comedy slasher film, I would say. Yeah. But the main character in it, his name is Gregory Tudor. He's an ice cream man. He has like the truck and everything back in the day when they would drive around and meet the kids outside. But he puts like dead body parts and bugs and gross shit inside of the ice cream. Like, you can see these people standing in line at the ice cream truck ready to order, and it flashes to the back, and there's eyeballs on the ice cream, there's cockroaches. Yeah. Like, it's some nasty, nasty shit. He treats it as, like an experimental lab, almost.
Kind of, yes. Yeah, he's trying to, perfect ice cream.
He's trying to perfect ice cream, but he went through, some childhood trauma where he was in, a mental institution, and they basically, kind of ruined him, and they're like, there's no bad day, Gregory. Yeah. And they, made him obsessed with ice cream, and it's cringy. Like, he kidnaps one of the kids, but doesn't kill him. He just holds him hostage and, feeds him the ice cream with, eyeballs in it.
Yes.
It's pretty bad, and I think one of the funniest parts about this is the main guy in it, Clint Howard. I don't know if you recognized him, but he was in The Waterboy, Adam Sandler. Yeah. And seeing him in a role like this, I was just so taken back.
He's actually been in a couple, horror movies. One, I forget the name of it, but he was possessed by, a demonic computer. Oh, really? Yeah,
he must be, a pretty interesting guy. I definitely remember him in Waterboy. That's where I think I know him the best. Uh-huh. But seeing him play, a more... I want to say serious, because, he acts serious in this. It's not, funny at all. They act very serious. Yeah. So seeing him in, a creepy role like this is definitely different. But yeah, the kids kind of start to catch on, and they see one of their friends gets kidnapped, and they start to say, it's the ice cream man, and the cops can't really prove that it's him. But yeah, he was abused when he was younger, living in a sanatorium, and it's definitely a B movie.
Yeah, it's just very not it sounds kind of interesting, but it's just very poorly done. There's corny lines and.
It could have been, that's another thing, it could have been done better, the idea of, preying on something so innocent, we all remember being little and, going to get ice cream, and your mom gives you money, and you get to go get, a push pop or whatever. Yeah. That's such an innocent memory, so preying on that is definitely super smart. Right. It looks like they were going to make a sequel in 2014 called Ice Cream Man 2, Sunday, Bloody Sunday. But, of course, Sunday is spelled like ice cream sundae. Sure. For the film's 20th anniversary, and I guess it was canceled.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I can't imagine that did too well,
I can't imagine.
That was, I think, just a TV movie. I remember watching it on Chiller. I mean, not obviously when it came out.
I remember watching it on Chiller, too.
A day old when that came out, but...
Yeah, for the most part, I remember watching it. And the budget was surprisingly $2 million for this movie.
Seriously?
Yeah, which is, I guess, maybe for mostly the body parts, almost.
Yeah, I don't really know where the money weren't that great.
Yeah, because the special effects weren't great.
Yeah, well, I looked at one scene too where he's chasing the kids around where his ice cream factory is, and he's got the 2 cops' heads on the ice cream cones. He's pretending they're puppets. Yeah,
he's definitely. You kind of feel bad for him because you're obviously this guy went through some trauma.
Yeah, and he's kind of pathetic looking and feeling. He's kind of
somebody that's his guardian, even though he's an adult. There's a lot to discuss there for sure.
But, no, definitely a classic.
It's worth a watch.
Yeah, classic one right there. Alright, for my number 8 here, I picked 1989's The Intruder. Oh, it's just called Intruder. So this movie was an American slasher film written and directed by Scott Spiegel and co-written by Lawrence Bender. And this movie actually is pretty cool because Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell both star in the movie, along with Sam Raimi's brother. I believe his name is Ted. And
I have seen this movie, I think.
This is actually one of my, definitely should have been higher up on my list now that I'm thinking about it, because they're stuck at a grocery store, and somebody starts killing the kids working in the grocery store, and they don't know who it is yet. So it's kind of like a mystery too. At the same time, the deaths are just, it's kind of it's like reminiscent of Evil Dead.
Yeah.
That's the thing though. It's very it's funny to see him acting in a movie that he didn't direct, and it's still just as gory as he would make it.
I'm sure he had some input for sure.
Yeah, there's people's heads going through the bandsaw at the butchery department in the grocery store.
Oh,
there's people getting packaged, just smushed by the packing machine and stuff like that, and it's super, super good. And Bruce Campbell plays a cop, at the end of the movie. I think it's more kind of like a cameo appearance I think he makes. He's a cop at the end of the movie trying to help them figure out who the killer is, and it actually ends up being the grocery store owner. He's pissed because the store's going out of business because it lost, business to a big, conglomerate corporation that moved in down the street. So he's a little disgruntled, and he's taking it out on all these high school kids that work there. And it's a fun movie. It's definitely a unique idea. It actually received pretty good, positive review because of the where it was filmed and everything, in a grocery store, the setting. And it only had a budget of $130,000, and it did very well, I think, as far as
having two big stars like Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell.
Yeah, exactly. And it was right at Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 had come out. Army of Darkness had not come out yet. The guy actually that helped produce the movie went on to produce Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and From Dusk Till Dawn. So right there, it just shows how for a B movie, it's definitely a good film,
Yeah, I would definitely say Bruce Campbell. He would love a good B movie.
Oh yeah, I mean he's the king of one of the king.
When I was doing
kings of B,
research
B
for this,
movies.
when I was doing research for this, some people said that Evil Dead was considered a B movie, like Evil Dead 1 and 2.
Yeah, definitely would consider it on B movies.
Which I think they got so popular. It's is it still a B movie if they're still that popular?
Yeah, that is true too. Well, I think now it's a cult classic. I think at the time it was definitely considered a B movie.
Yeah, now I guess it would be. More
it got an X-rated rating too, NC-17. I mean.
Oh, which is rare. Yeah. There's only there's only 90 movies or something that have an NC-17 rating.
Yeah, in the U.S. It's insane, and that was one of the films that got it just because of how violent it was, and the blood and everything. I mean, looking back at it, it's really not that violent. You're like, oh my god, this is corny as hell,
After Terrifier 2 being released in theaters, you're like, okay, anything can go.
Oh, I know, it's insane.
Anything's fine.
So yeah, that's my number 8. Definitely go give it a watch. You can find it on Tubi. It's a great movie. You guys will not be disappointed in it. It's actually a really good film.
Okay, so what are we on? 8? Yeah. So for my number 8, I picked.
I should label these.
You okay?
Yeah.
I picked Attack of the Crab Monsters, which this movie came out in 1957. It was an independently made black and white sci-fi horror film. And Nick and I saw this. There was a theater near us that used to play pretty much old B movies specifically.
Yeah, specifically Robert J. Corman and Del Penny movies and stuff like that.
And there's another movie on my list that I picked that we saw at this theater too. But it was just cool to see a theater full of people going to see a movie like this, and at the end everybody would clap.
Oh yeah,
and really appreciate it. But essentially, a group of scientists they traveled to a remote island in the Pacific Ocean, and I guess they were researching radiation and the effects of nuclear
detonations.
Yeah, basically pouring nuclear waste into the island's plant life and the sea life. And if you couldn't have guessed by now, the radiation and the nuclear testing caused these giant crab monsters to form. And these things are just
they're hilarious.
They're wild looking. Imagine I don't even know, a huge spider almost.
Mm-hmm.
And they crawl up on land and they just attack all these scientists, and they almost roll them up in a little cocoon.
Mm-hmm.
And just terrorize the shit out of them. But I could see definitely for the time how this would be creepy. I mean, crabs are creepy anyways, kind of the way they move. They kind of remind me of spiders.
Sure. I mean, they're very spider-like, in
they're kind of creepy anyways. But of course, there's all the perfect storm to this movie. They have a thunderstorm. They're unable to use their radio. They can't report. They can't call to anybody. It's
can't
the perfect scary movie. They're trapped on this island, and they're basically being eaten and mutilated by these intelligent giant crabs.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is they actually absorb the minds of the people they eat. And
then they get more intelligent too.
They get more intelligent the people they eat, and then they can speak telepathically.
Yes.
After they eat, so if they eat somebody and then they consume their intelligence, eat somebody else, and they consume their intelligence as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's the typical Roger Corman. He directed this, right? Or helped produce it, right? Roger Corman?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a typical Corman, just like over the top. He's the king of B movies. I mean, he made all those, Alien Man from Planet Z and stuff like that. He just was the king of those movies.
They basically discover that these crabs are actually causing earthquakes on this island, landslides, they're destroying the island, making tunnels underground, and, they basically focus their attention on like making these crabs stop mating to stop making more killer crabs. And they kill one of them by like trapping it in a tunnel and then like exploding the tunnel. Yeah. But I mean, pretty much there's a ton of them, but there's a lot of them. And then at the end they find this little like area that they had seen earlier with a bunch of eggs, which they're assuming are crab eggs. At the end of the movie, they're all gone. Right. So it's like dun dun dun.
Yeah, it's like Attack of the Crab Monsters too.
Like there's even more. And yeah, this is a great. I mean, you have to go in with like a grain of salt. Like, don't expect anything more than literally crab monsters attacking.
Right. That's just. I mean, that's what it is,
But the budget, they actually profited really well off this movie. The budget was $70,000, and they made $1 million in the box office.
Oh wow, that's pretty. Well, that was Corman though. I mean, he just was brilliant like that. And that time too, like. Film's still relatively new, and especially like sci-fi monster movies. I mean, that was like the big craze, Yeah,
I mean, it was interesting for sure. I mean, I think it's worth a watch.
Oh, for sure. All right, for my number 7, I picked I Drink Your Blood. It's a 1971 hippie exploitation horror film. So basically, this movie was a double feature. It was I Drink Your Blood and I Eat Your Skin. It was a it's a Grindhouse classic. So I Drink Your Blood was directed by David E. Durston, and then I Eat Your Skin, which was part of the double feature, was directed. It actually was titled Zombies in 1964, and Del Taney was the director for it. But the film had gotten lost, and the person helping produce I Drink Your Blood found this movie, retitled it I Eat Your Skin, and released it as a double pack. Double feature. I have not seen I Eat Your Skin, so I will not be talking about that. I just wanted to make note of that because you might hear I Drink Your Blood, I Eat Your Skin as like kind of like a two thing. And that's actually what the trailer was, I believe. It was like as a double feature. So it was actually one of the first films in America to receive a X rating based on violence and not nudity. Bravo for them. I think that's a pretty cool thing.
That's a flex.
It was it's definitely a Grindhouse movie. The plot is basically like these Manson-like cult hippies show up in this town, and they're like doing satanic stuff, and the people in the village or in the town are, like a little what the heck about it,
Yeah, of course.
And they're kind of terrorizing them too, like they pick on the townspeople and everything like that, and like scare them and everything like that. And this one little boy ends up taking rabies. I don't remember exactly how he gets it, but he gets it in a syringe somehow and injects it into this pie. And the hippies break into this house and eat this pie, and they all start going rabid. And they start killing people, and it's super, super low budget. I mean, this is an awesome B movie if you're into that stuff. Super low budget. And the killings, it's like clay heads they use when they chop off like a head, and the blood's literally like ketchup and stuff like that. It's kind of like, it blows my mind how they got an X-rated, or an NC-17 rating for it.
Yeah, but how unrealistic it probably looks.
It looks super, super unrealistic. And eventually they end up... I think like the next town over, like the state troopers show up and they kill the hippies and the movie ends. It's basically just like, it's basically like they come into the town, they start like terrorizing the town, they get rabies, kill some of the townspeople, and then like the sheriffs come in and kill them, and that was the end of the movie.
That's all they get.
Yeah.
That's all she wrote.
So it's kind of a hard watch just because it's very like boring at points, and but it's good if you can sit through it. You'll appreciate it, I think.
You played all the catch-up kill scenes.
Yeah, and there's like the one scene like this girl gets one of those automatic like kitchen knives that help shave turkeys, and she like chops off the lady's arm and comes outside holding the arms. Just like, dude, that's like a piece of like
mannequin or something.
Yeah, it's like a mannequin arm with blood on it, like dipped in paint. It's super corny, super classic B movie. It's definitely gained a cult following over the years, and it's been re-released by like Severin Films and everything like that multiple times, and Grindhouse Classics. So it's definitely like gained a wicked cult following. since it's a movie
For
about
sure.
a cult.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So that's my number 7.
So for my number 7, I picked Jack Frost, which not to be confused with the family-friendly Michael Keaton Jack Frost, which is, I think, so crazy. Is this movie Jack Frost that I'm referring to is a B movie about a snowman serial killer, and it came out in 1997, and then the family-friendly one with Michael Keaton came out a year later in 1998.
Oh, really?
So it's like, who? I mean, they must have copied either the name, or I don't know if they even knew about it.
Yeah,
or...
maybe they didn't even know about it.
I don't know. I mean, this was a direct-to DVD movie. Like,
Yeah,
it never got a theater release or anything like that.
Sure.
Definitely like a black comedy slasher film.
Yes.
But it kind of reminds me of Chucky. Essentially, there's a serial killer and he's like running from the cops, and he crashes into like a truck that's carrying like genetically modified material, and it melts on him, and he melts into the snow, and then he becomes a snowman.
Yeah.
But he's still a serial killer, so it's kind of like Chucky when like the criminal goes inside the doll, you know, he's still a criminal.
Yeah.
And then it's basically just a snowman being a serial killer. And it's so bad, but like I have to every Christmas I have to watch it, which I think we'll do a Christmas episode.
Oh, yeah, we gotta
like
do
Christmas horror movies.
Christmas horror movie episode. When it gets closer to the time, though.
Yes.
No one likes talking about Christmas when it's not Christmas.
And I was like hesitant to put this on here because it's not Christmas time, but it's a really good movie.
It's definitely a good B movie.
It's like he kills people in like the craziest ways, using like glass ornaments, using like a light up snowflake, and like kills somebody in the head. Like it's very, very
icicles, stabbing people with icicles. And
they made a couple of these. They made 3 of them.
Yeah.
Second one was Revenge of the Mutant Killer Snowman, and Jack Frost 3 was Jackzilla.
Jackzilla.
Of course, why wouldn't it be Jackzilla?
Oh god, I know. And there are bad movies.
They're bad. He looks
I've seen this. I think the second one, I think.
Yes, it's bad. And then they try to kill him at the end with some antifreeze, and he melts into the antifreeze. But of course, it's the second one, so he melts, and then he probably comes back like Frosty.
Yeah, exactly. Next winter, he returns.
It doesn't say what the budget was, but it's probably a little bit more of a budget because they probably had to use CGI, I would assume.
I would imagine, or some sort of like claymation type of thing.
But this is one like where they definitely knew they were doing. Like there was one scene, I think, I don't know if it was the first one or the second one, but he's even like in the shower with one of the girls, like trying to have sex with her as a snowman.
Right. Yeah, they like, it's like they knew what they were doing.
They knew what they were doing.
They weren't trying to be like serious about it.
They weren't trying to be scary, but I just thought that was so crazy when I was researching this, because I was like, oh, what's that snowman killer movie? I love that one. And I couldn't think of the name at first, and I kept researching Jack Frost, and all that would come up was the family-friendly one, and I was like, what the hell? And I look, and it only came out a year after the B movie.
That's crazy. It's crazy.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah. All right, so for my number 6, I picked 1970s American splatter film directed by Herschel Gordon Lewis, The Wizard of Gore. This one is one of my favorites because it's just super gory. It's H.G. Lewis. He's another B-movie king. Basically, it follows this magician named Montag the Magnificent, which basically in his acts on stage, he will have a volunteer from the audience come up and he will like saw them in half, or in this case, he'll literally disembowel them on stage, cut their head off, cut their limbs off, but then he somehow puts them back together and they walk off stage. But when they walk off stage, they're kind of like in this weird trance. And it's not until like they leave the theater a few hours later, they fall apart into like how he mutilated them, essentially. So obviously the police get involved, but they can't prove he's doing this because as they leave his show, they're fine. They walk out, no problem. But it's some sort of like mass hypnosis he's doing on these people to make it appear like that they're fine and they're walking out of there, even though they're not. Of course, there's a big plot hole in that and everything. It's an H.G. Lewis movie. There's going to be a little bit of plot hole, and what the heck, that makes no sense. But essentially, they end up finding out and like getting a hold of Montag, and they basically kill him and everything like that. And but yeah, it's just super gory. Some of the most iconic kill scenes, just like being like I think he used like a hydraulic press and like punched a hole through this woman's stomach.
Shit.
Yeah, just insane.
So after he kills
stuff.
them and then they're in the trance and they walk off stage, do they collapse after or no?
Well, no, they got to leave. It's like a couple hours after they leave.
And then they die.
Yeah, and then they die. So like in like one scene, he like cuts this lady in half, right? walks out. They're kind of like in a trance, and then it cuts to them like the husband and wife, that the lady, of the lady, and everything like that. So they're sitting at a restaurant at dinner, and then all of a sudden she just slides into two pieces at the table. Yeah, so it's like super over the top, and like everyone's screaming and freaking out and everything, and it's a typical H.G. Lewis movie of the time. It's just a perfect B movie. I forget. I don't know if does it say what the budget is here? $60,000. Okay. So right there, it just goes to show, and it's just a perfect movie.
So for my number 6, I picked another Roger Corman, which is another one that we saw at that old theater that I was talking about. I picked The Wasp Woman.
Oh, yeah.
Also known as Insect Woman or The Bee Girl. It's a 1959. It's another independent sci-fi horror film produced by Roger Corman. Yeah. And it's all in black and white, but essentially it's the founder of a large cosmetics company, and she's disturbed when her firm's sales begin to drop, and it becomes apparent that her customer base is aging, which this is probably like a commentary on women's and aging and like cosmetics and all that, but that's for another day. So basically, she was able to extract enzymes from the jelly of a queen wasp that can reverse the aging process, supposedly. But, it turns these women into actual wasps. Which, of course, she serves as, like, the human subject for it, and it turns her into a wasp. And I'm talking full wasp. Like, when she turns, she's got the eyes, where it's, like, you can see out of, like, 50 little parts of the eye.
Yes.
She makes the little, like, noise.
Yeah.
And it's, for the time, like, the effects are pretty good. Like, she does look like a wasp woman, I would say.
Yeah, that's, like, what I would picture a wasp woman
with her eyes and her
like.
face and everything. I mean, she looks pretty scary. Like, if you can see... She's got, like, the little horns and stuff. Like, she looks pretty...
Yeah, got the antennas and everything.
Pretty creepy. Yeah, she, at first she starts using the serum, and it looks like she shed 20 years in a single weekend. But, she finds out that it basically turns her into, like, a murderous wasp creature.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, like, reminiscent of The Fly that came out a year before that, I think. It was 1968.
No, this would have been... Oh, The First Fly, yeah.
Yeah, The First Fly, yeah.
The First Fly, yeah. But then, at the end, somebody basically realizes what she is and throws a bottle of acid in her face, using a chair, pushes her out of a window, and she falls to her death. And that's basically the movie. So it starts out with being like, I want to look younger, I'm going to use this stuff from bees, and then I turn into an actual bee, but she's murderous with that.
I know, a lot of those, I think, those Roger Corman movies, they weren't like a long run time either. I think they were like, maybe
not at all.
70 minutes or something.
Minutes.
Yeah, they were like a little over an hour.
Yeah, there's not really much else to that, I would say.
And that's another thing. It's like some of those, like these B movies, they are just like short run films, shorter, not they're not short movies by any like means, but they are shorter like runtime. They're not going over like an hour and 20 minutes generally. Yeah,
it got pretty bad reviews. I'm looking, it's got a 45% on Rotten Tomatoes. Somebody gave it a 1 out of 4 rating, calling the film laughable.
Oh, no, we should see what the ratings are.
Criticizing the film's ludicrous monster costumes, special effects, and low budget, which the budget was $50,000.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, what else can you ask for, though? Yeah, that is true. We should check ratings on these.
Which I know there is another...
I'd be curious to see what some of mine have.
My dad was telling us, I know there's another movie, some bee movie with women that turn into bees. Literally a bee movie with women turn into bees. And they kill men with their stinger when they have sex with them, which, like, honestly, iconic. I mean,
sure, right?
Low-key, kind of iconic.
Alright.
I wonder what the correlation is there with so many women turning into bees in those movies.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, right? I wonder what the idea came from. What are we on? Number 5 or 6?
5.
No, 5. Okay, so for my number 5, I know I should have numbered these. I picked 1981's Burial Ground. It was also titled as Nights of Terror, Zombie Horror, or The Zombie Dead. It's an Italian grindhouse zombie movie directed by Andrea Bianchi. And it's one... So, just real quick note, when you hear, like, Zombie 3... So, like, at the time, Night of the Living Dead came out, that was considered zombie. And then Lucio Fulci did Zombie 2, which was just Zombie, right. Or, what is it? I can't even remember the name. It was just called Zombie. And so then a bunch of other Italian directors started doing their like own zombie cannibal movie type things, and so there's been different titles for thrown around, and they're not official titles by any means, but just to make note of that, if you hear me say like Zombie 3 or something like that, it's not really part of, it's just like this continuation of these zombie movies. So back to the movie. I just rewatched this because I haven't seen it in a long time, and I forgot just how horrible. It makes no sense, the plot. It's super weird. There's some disturbing parts in it too. I mean, it's an Italian film. It's going to be kind of what the hell. But basically, it starts out this scientist is studying this ancient crypt that the Etruscans were supposedly buried in Italy. And unleashes an evil curse, and it starts to reanimate the people that have died and been buried in the area. And it's super gory. Kind of is like a Lucio Fulci type of movie where there's a lot of like disemboweling and blood and neck peeling and stuff like that. So these people show up at this place, this mansion, and this is where this doctor was doing his research on the grounds around this mansion. And these zombies just start showing up and start killing them. And it's super like Italian sleaze. There's a lot of sex. There's a lot of nudity. There's this weird little boy who's got this fetish with his mom and like wants to suck on her nipple and stuff like that. It's super weird. It's super weird, but it's a fun movie. Just because of the killing, and they're not like the best zombies. Like some of the costumes are like super well done, like they look like dead people that got maggots falling out of their eyes, and then it's like the one next to him is literally just a guy with like green paint on his face.
Like they only had enough budget for the one with the maggots.
They're like walking around.
And then they're like, no, you get paint.
Yeah, you get paint, exactly. And then like, they're walking all slow and everything like that, and they're not like super aggressive or anything, and it's very like kind of slow burn, but it's just one of those ones that you want to just keep watching because it's just like it makes absolutely no sense. The dubbing is terrible. It's just, there's no like plot really to it. It's just like, why are these people here? And why are these zombies attacking? And you really don't know why until you like go and read like a synopsis on the film.
Yeah,
like it does not explain it in the movie. But yeah, that's my number 5. It is a pretty good one. Just because it's part of that whole Italian cannibal zombie thing that happened in the 80s, and those are my favorite films. So yeah, go give it a watch, especially if you like
zombies.
Yeah, weird thing, and it's weird because like the guy that the kid that had the weird obsession with his mother in the movie, he was actually 25 years old, but he looks like a 10-year-old boy.
Really?
Like he's got something wrong with him, I think, that makes him look younger, like the Benjamin Button disease or something.
Something like that.
And yeah, so it's super funny. just go give it a watch. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, I can imagine just watching a movie and just zombies come out of nowhere and you're like, what?
Right.
Okay, so for my number 5, I picked 1982, the movie that came out, Pieces. Which...
Yes, Pieces.
Yes, this is a really good movie.
Pieces.
It's filmed, like it starts in 1942, and the beginning scene is like a little boy, maybe like 7, 8 years old, and he's doing a jigsaw puzzle, and he's putting the pieces together. It's a naked woman.
Yeah.
And you're already kind of like, what the hell? And his mom comes in, and she starts yelling at him, and she's like, you're a pervert, you're just like your father, whatever. She goes to get a trash bag to throw it away, and he takes the axe and basically kills her.
Yeah.
The cops show up, whatever, and then it kind of goes to present day, and these students of Boston University are being kind of harassed by a chainsaw maniac.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially he's killing all these people and turning their bodies into jigsaw puzzles.
Yeah, he's like cutting them up
Yes.
to like use pieces to make like a human jigsaw puzzle,
Yes.
which is a cool idea for a movie, but
it's just not executed well. Like, even this one article I found was like, it's literally summer and like this guy's walking around in a trench coat and hat and boots and nobody thinks twice. They're all just like, oh, he's fine. Like, he's good.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, I think the way it's shot is you can't see that the son is the killer. So you're not really sure at first. And then, they kind of start to see that the killer is putting them in pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. So you're like, okay, obviously his mom did some trauma to him with the whole jigsaw puzzle thing.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's cheesy. There's a lot of nudity. There's a lot of kill scenes in it.
Yeah, a lot of nudity, and it's pretty gory too. I mean,
it's pretty gory.
I mean, there's a lot of like dismembering and Like, you know, it's obviously pretty corny because it's not, you know, the effects weren't great, but it's pretty gory for the time,
and the acting
too.
is terrible.
Yeah, it's got Christopher George. He's actually a really good actor, and then his wife's in it too, like Linda Day George. But it's definitely a B movie by like all standards.
By all standards, this is probably like a B movie. Like, don't expect really much from this.
Yeah, I love in the trailer too. It's like you don't have to go to Texas for a chainsaw massacre.
Yes. Yeah, the first victim is like killed while she's sunbathing, like just typical cheesy scary movie, you know, like hot girls naked being killed with a violent weapon. Like,
yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's definitely it's a good movie. I mean, there's a lot of good kill scenes. We watch it a few times a year. I'd say it's a good comfort movie.
Quite a cult following too. Actually, I think like Grindhouse does like a thing where they release that with like Evil Dead as like a double feature around Halloween time at like select theaters and stuff like that.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't take itself like too seriously by any means.
No, it's definitely meant to be corny.
But it's like you said, that is a good idea to be a killer and like making basically a big jigsaw piece of all your victims. Like that's a cool idea.
I know, I agree.
But it's just not really well executed.
No. Yeah, and I think what is it? It's a Spanish movie, right? It's not American. It's all dubbed
Spanish.
over. Well,
no, it's not dubbed over. I think they remade it.
No, it's like I think the directors. It was like made in Spain or something like that. I forget. I'm pretty sure. I'm not sure, but yeah, it's weird because like they're speaking English, but the words aren't lining up with the mouth. You know what I mean? Like they're speaking the same word.
It's a Spanish-American horror film.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. I'm pretty sure the director, he was like a Spanish
and
director.
And the other name for it is The Night Has 1,000 Screams.
I love these names, like these alternative names they come up with it.
It's a quick runtime too. It's only 90-minute runtime.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're like, there's some that are like just they're not going to really be over. Like, I guess that would be over 120 minutes, or you know, an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was originally released in Spain. And then, it got a call following after that.
Sure. All right, so for my number 4, I picked... We actually just rewatched this one, too. Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things.
They just put it on Shudder.
Yeah, so anybody who has Shudder, you can go watch it there. And it originally was also known as Revenge of the Living Dead and Things from the Dead and Zreeks. And it's basically a comedy horror, and it's actually directed by Bob Clark, who later would go on to... It's a 1972 comedy horror movie directed by Bob Clark. And he'd later go on to make Black Christmas, A Christmas Story, and then Porky's.
Which he was in college when he made this, and these are all his college friends that he uses the cast for this movie, and they all go by their real names. Like, that's how you know it's low budget. They all go by their real names.
It's basically like a college movie. This is actually his 3rd film, I think, that he ever made.
It's like an independent student film.
Yeah, and it was shot in 2 weeks on a $50,000 budget, and it definitely shows. A lot of people are probably not going to like it, but it is kind of a comedy movie. It's definitely a cult classic for sure. But basically, it's these group of kids that travel to this island off the coast of Miami. And it's a cemetery island. It's where people go to bury their dead. And they're basically trying to pay. They're a group of kids, and there's a leader. It's kind of like a cult. Yeah. But he's like a film director. And the people that are following him are like wannabe actors and stuff like that. So he's trying to play a prank on them. And he's got 2 people there already that have like dug up a body and like put themselves in the grave and everything. They were going to like raise the dead, and he was just going to do it as a joke. But he's using like the Necronomicon to do this ritual, and it really brings the dead back to life. And it just basically, it's a slow burn. It probably nothing really exciting doesn't happen until maybe like the last, half hour of the movie. And then, the zombies come, they start killing them. It's not super gory. It's really just
the effects aren't great.
Yeah, there's really
just like green people.
Yeah, no money for effects. No. But it definitely stood the test of time, and a lot of people do like this movie. I'm one of those people. I think it's good. It's a good movie. The name's creepy.
I would say the name is great.
Yeah, I think it's an awesome name. And it could have been really well executed if they had more money.
They should remake it. Somebody should remake it.
I really think he should, yeah. I don't know if he's still alive. Probably not, but...
Somebody should, buy the rights and remake that.
I know. I think that would be a good movie. But, yeah, that's essentially the movie. And then at the end of the movie, as the credits are rolling, you see, the horde of zombies going on the boat that they showed up on. So, they're going to get to civilization eventually is, what you're left with at the end of the movie is, they're coming to mainland and take over the world. But that is my number 4.
So for my number 4, I picked 1979 Tourist Trap.
Good one.
Which, this is Definitely an interesting movie. Kind of like a typical scary movie. You know, it's a group of teenagers. They're driving through the country and they kind of stop at a roadside attraction, which, you know, what we've learned from scary movies, just never do that. Like, between this and like House of a Thousand Corpses, just like don't.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's basically, there's a bunch of different mannequins in this attraction, and the guy running it is kind of creepy. He's telling them, oh, I'll help you with your car. Like, my brother will help you. Like, just weird. He's acting very weird.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that he's actually kidnapping people that stop at this roadside attraction, and he turns them into mannequins.
Yeah.
And the way it's done is it's just so cheesy. It's sleazy. It's crazy. Like, there's the hot girl and, like, all her friends.
That's Tanya Roberts, right? Yeah, to one of the Charlie's Angels is the girl.
I think she actually gets away at the end.
Is she the one that survives?
I'm pretty sure she's, like, the main girl. She's, like, in the tube top.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she gets away. But it's, like... It's creepy because, like, he's kidnapping all these people and he's turning them into mannequins and then he's putting them in his museum. So it's similar to, like, House of Wax vibes, I would say.
Yeah, definitely got
just
that
not
vibe.
as well executed. Definitely low budget, for sure.
Yeah.
It all takes place in, like, one room.
Wasn't there, like, he's, like, telepathic, though, or he's got some sort of, like, psychokinetic ability? Because doesn't he, like, make this, like, the mannequins move and stuff like that?
Oh, he
like,
does
with his mind?
move, yeah.
Yeah, it's, like, there's, like, that other weird aspect of it, too, right? I mean,
that's true. No, you're right.
Yeah.
It doesn't say anything about that when I looked it up, but you're right. In the movie, the mannequins are, like, moving on their own.
Yeah, I thought it was, like, something he could do with his mind.
He's definitely a very lonely guy.
Yeah.
That he's having all this happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely House of Wax vibes. I guess whoever wrote this actually intended John Carpenter to direct the film.
Oh, really? Okay.
But he refused.
Okay, makes sense.
Who knows? Like, if he did direct it, it could have been maybe a way better movie.
Sure.
You know, maybe a little bit more budget, a little more, like, artistic value to it. It could have been a really good movie. But yeah, the budget was $50,000. And they said most of that was dedicated to the lead actor to play the villain.
Sure.
I guess most of that paid to him.
Yeah. Who was the actor? Because I think he was somebody famous too, wasn't he? No.
Robin Sherwood, I think.
I don't know.
But yeah, various items in the room move on their own accord. One of the girls is wearing a scarf and it starts to kind of strangle her to death.
Yeah, there's like something like
weird.
telekinetic. There's some sort of like
which I will say, like the effects for that stuff, like the things moving on their own, are done pretty well.
Yeah,
like you can't see the strings or anything. And it's a dark room, so they could have hit it very well.
Sure.
But it's still, they put effort into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think it ever got a theater release or anything like that. It went right to
like VHS or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely his getting the cult following, though. I mean, this is like
it's
you looking back, following. Yeah, this is like definitely gotten a lot of like, you know, same like with like Evil Dead and stuff like that. It's gotten like a revival basically because
huge
of it.
Following. Yeah, it's kind of a funny movie to watch, honestly.
It is pretty corny.
Trying to look at the reviews. Yeah, they're calling it a low budget blunder.
Blunder. I don't know. I thought it was pretty good, honestly.
Mostly boring thriller. Yeah, not that good of reviews for sure.
Sure.
All right, you want to go?
Yeah. So for my number 3, I picked. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Contamination, otherwise known as alien contamination, toxic spawn or larvae. It's a 1980 science fiction Italian horror film. It stars Ian McCulloch. And it's basically about this alien cyclops creature that uses human agents to place eggs all over the earth. The eggs release a gelatinous goo that makes you explode. And
of course,
it's super violent. So it starts out like these people. There's this cruise ship, or not a cruise ship, like a freight ship in the harbor of New York City, and there's like these people that like no one's like answering, so they like aboard the ship, and there's like all these dead bodies and everything on there. So they call in like a hazmat thing, thinking there's like an outbreak, you know, there's some sort of viral outbreak. They find these eggs, and they look like giant avocados.
Aww.
And heat basically triggers them to start to incubate and then eventually explode. So this one guy picks one up, and it like the heat from his body starts making it like pulsate, and he's like holding it, and it's a B movie. They're just kind of standing there like, you know, drop it, you know, and everything. And it's dubbed over. It's like an Italian film that's dubbed over in English. And it eventually explodes and puts all this liquid on these 3 guys that are standing near him.
And now they're contaminated.
Now they're contaminated,
right.
But literally like a second after that happens, their like insides just rupture out, and it's just they explode. It's super gory, like entrails everywhere, blood splattering everywhere. And so after that happens, obviously there's something crazy going on. So the government gets involved, the federal government. They start, they freeze all these eggs that are on this ship. They start doing their investigation. They find that there's other places around New York City that have like warehouses full of these eggs. And they come to the realization that these are like obviously alien in nature. Right. So they're talking to NASA and everything like that. And there's this one astronaut that's like kind of disgruntled. His name's Ian McCullough, or it's played by Ian McCullough. I forget his name in the movie. But he's like, yes, I've seen these before. When I was on a mission to Mars, me and this other astronaut wandered into this cave, and there was millions of them. There was a Cyclops god thing there. And that's basically what happened was, so like when they went to Mars on this mission, they wandered in this cave. There was this Cyclops god alien thing there that mind controlled the other astronaut and basically was like making him, I don't know how he was doing it, but getting eggs from Mars to Earth and planting them all around New York to basically invade. And they catch the guy, they end up catching the guy and everything like that. And the movie just abruptly ends after they catch the guy. There's no like what happened to all the eggs, did they destroy them? But it's super gory. It's an Italian, one of those 80s Italian splatter films. I like it. It's kind of a cool concept. It could definitely like be a really good idea for a movie.
Yeah.
If it was executed well. It had a pretty decent budget, $250,000. It was just released in Italy and West Germany. It was eventually picked up in America in the later half of the 80s and dubbed over. So yeah, it's a good movie. So you can see it on Tubi. I believe it's on Tubi, and definitely go give it a watch if you want to see some good gore. I mean, it's super gory. I mean, the explosion, the guts explode, people exploding. It's pretty violent.
I can imagine for sure.
So that is that. That is my number 3.
So for my number 3, I picked The Dentist, I love this movie. It came out in 1996, and I remember it playing on Shudder. Like, at least once I'm sorry, not Shudder. Yeah, Chiller.
Yep.
At least once a day. And I, like, have a specific memory of this girl came to my house to spend the night one time, and I made her stay up and watch this movie with me. And I'm sorry for her now. She's probably...
Sure.
She's probably like, what the hell was that about? This is an outrageous movie. We actually just rewatched it a couple weeks ago because for nostalgia purposes, of course.
She made me watch it. Yes. I was like, I hate this movie.
But it's all about the dentist, Dr. Alan Feinstone, and the whole movie is him basically just losing his goddamn mind.
Yeah, and he's just mad and going
I'm
crazy.
assuming they made it about a dentist because everybody hates going to the dentist. And like even the slogan for this movie is, it's been 6 months since your last checkup.
Right.
But he's got like severe OCD and he's obsessed with like cleanliness and perfection. In this whole movie, he's popping these pills and you don't really know what they are. But
something to control his to control whatever's going on with him, but it's not working.
They're not working. They're making him like hallucinate. But in the beginning, he's a little bit older, like typical like rich man kind of thing. His wife's a little bit younger. She's laying out by the pool, and basically he sees that she has an affair with the pool guy, and he just starts to spiral from there. So he gets to work, and he's like freaking out. He's popping these pills under his desk, and he sees his first patient. It's a little boy, and in his head he starts envisioning that his teeth are rotted out. So he starts kind of like drilling in his teeth, and then the kid starts crying, and he's bleeding all out his mouth. And he comes to, and he's like, "Oh, what the hell? What did I just do?" And that's kind of the whole movie. Is he keeps seeing patients and like just envisioning that their teeth are rotting out of their mouth.
He's having like these wicked delusions.
And then the whole time then he starts having like some flashbacks about his wife, and then he starts like taking a wrench and like pulling teeth out because he's mad about his wife.
Yeah.
And at the end, he tricks his wife because it's their anniversary, and he ties her to this like dentist chair and holds her mouth open and tweezes all of her teeth out. And at the end, the pool boy comes up to her like trying to kiss her kind of thing, and her mouth is all rotted out. Everything's yellow. It's a good scene. Like,
yeah, it is pretty good.
I will say, like, you can see her gums. Everything's like all oozing out. It's all infected. Like it looks creepy as hell. Yeah. And the pool boy's just like, oh. Yeah. But the effects are bad. Like nothing makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of like, what the hell's going on? Like
you're literally like, is he imagining this? Is it the pills? And you still don't really know.
Yeah,
you're
you
like,
really don't know.
Did she even have an affair with the pool boy, or he just imagined that?
Yeah, because he's just going completely insane. Is he just like seeing all this random stuff because he's crazy? or did it really happen, you know?
Yeah, and I'm still, like, I can't really find anything on that. I mean, there's, like, Reddit threads here and there, but I still can't find, like, a definitive, like, did this actually happen, or did he just go crazy the whole time? I don't know.
Yes.
There was a scene where he killed a dog, because the dog was attacking him, and he just kind of loses his shit, and this movie got a whopping 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's
which
so bad.
is impressive in itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that just goes to show what a great B movie it is, you know?
Yeah, it got a 2.9 out of 10. It says it adds nothing new to the mix besides over-the-top images of mouths being desecrated and queasy illusions of the alleged filthiness of oral sex.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Well, yeah, because that's right. Because like he saw the wife giving the cool guy. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That, I think. Yeah.
I don't think we can say that on YouTube, but yeah.
Yeah. It is a funny movie though. It's definitely like a comedy type of horror movie.
It actually says, one of the reviews said, this offbeat chiller is bound to offend those viewers who wish the offspring of Sam Raimi would learn to use filmmaking restraint.
I know, right?
So they're saying it even challenges Sam Raimi.
Well, I think they're just like, it's an insult to him, I guess. Yeah.
It did win Best Special Effects at a fan festival.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
I didn't think there was, I guess, I mean, you're pulling the teeth and everything. That looks pretty real.
It looks pretty real. Yeah. But I think it just preys on people not liking the dentist in general.
No, I definitely think that's the whole premise of the movie.
And they made a second one, too, surprisingly.
Yeah, I think there was, wasn't there a third one, too?
There's just a second one, but the second one he goes and he works at a mental hospital, which is just even more disturbing.
That's probably where they probably just let him like play out his fantasy.
Yeah, they're like, whatever you want to do.
Just let him play out his fantasy, you know.
But yeah, it went not even to VHS. It went to just a TV movie. Went to like HBO or something.
That's like what the Ice Cream Man was. It was like a released to TV movie. Yeah.
Released directly to television, HBO in 1996, and then I remember it playing on Chiller all the time.
Oh yeah, yep, same here.
I watched it a couple times.
Definitely.
More of a nostalgia movie for sure for me.
Oh, for sure. All right, so for my number 2, I picked William Gaffrey's Curse of Tartu, or Death Curse of Tartu. So this movie is basically like William, just a brief thing with William Gaffrey. I don't know how you say it. It's like a French name. He did like a lot of like B movies in the 60s that were kind of like centered around like the hippie movement, like the go-go dancing and stuff like that, like the girls with the big hair and everything like that.
I would have been a go-go dancer. I think that would have been fun.
So basically this movie is essentially that. It's a group of archaeologist students that venture into the Florida Everglades to look for fossils.
Oh, no, not the Florida Everglades.
Yeah. And they come across this area that's cursed by a Native American witch doctor named Tartu, and he's buried somewhere in this, part of the Everglades.
Oh, no.
And they decided to throw a dance party in the Everglades. So, they got the boombox out there and everything. And this movie came out in 1966.
Did Gator come out and eat them?
Well, that's the thing. So the Curse of Tartu, he can either appear as a snake. So there's a girl that gets killed by a python. Okay. There's an alligator, and then he comes back as a zombie. So that's only 4 people. The budget on this movie, I can't even imagine. I can't really find a whole lot on what the budget was of this movie, but I can't imagine it was a lot because it was just, it's shot in the Everglades and there's 4 people the entire time of the movie and a couple wild animals. So yeah, that's basically the whole movie. They desecrate this cursed area site by doing a dance party. You can't mess with cursed shit. And then a snake comes, kills one of them, an alligator, and then Tartu comes and kills the rest of them. Then the movie ends. But just a quick side note: anybody that's got the Arrow video service, they do a lot of like B movies and foreign films and like underrated horror movies. It's a great service. It's I think it's only like $5 a month or something like that. Yeah, it's not have the William Gaffrey collection on there, so it's like all of his big horror films that he did throughout the early 60s, and it's just great to pop on and watch because they're so corny, and it's definitely nostalgia kind of feeling like this is the 60s, it's super nostalgic.
A lot of these movies too can be found on Tubi.
Yes, this is also on Tubi. It's got a 3.6 out of 10 on IMDb, this movie.
Not too bad, I guess.
So it's pretty bad for a B for a B movie. I guess that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, a lot of these can be found on Tubi. I think most of them are free. I wouldn't pay for any of these if I were you.
Yeah, that is true too.
Definitely try to find them on like YouTube or Tubi if you can.
Yeah.
Worth a watch, but not worth a pay.
Yes.
So for my number 2, I picked Chopping Mall, which shout out to my best friend Kristen.
Mm-hmm.
This movie came out in 1986, and it is just a gem of a movie. Even talking about it right now, I kind of want to watch it.
Yeah. It's on Shudder too, right now.
It's on Shudder and it's on Tubi. Essentially, this mall has like a high crime rate, so it's kind of interesting to see because this is something that you think would be implemented now, but this was the 80s. So they have a high crime rate, so they kind of buy these little like security bots, and they roll around on wheels, and it's almost like AI, but in the 80s, right? So it goes around and detects crime, and they go around at night. So basically, instead of hiring security guards, they have these little bots going around. And they'll sense if there's stealing or somebody breaking in at night or something like that. Well, there's a group of teenagers, and they sneak into the mall overnight, and, they drink, do drugs, do all the fun things.
Sure.
And there's a lightning storm while they're there, and the lightning storm affects the electricity, and the electricity affects these little bots. So these bots just start to, for some reason, turn homicidal.
They do.
So these teenagers are being chased throughout the mall while these little bots come up and they use lasers and stuff and kill them with that. So they're literally being chased by little robots, but they're not scary looking robots. They're little roll on little wheels, just rolling through the mall.
I know, they're not menacing at all.
No, not at all. But the lightning storm strikes and they try to escape, but they're literally trapped inside the mall essentially. And they're robots, so they can sense everything, where they're going, where they're running off to. They have little beams that can sense everything.
Sure, yeah.
But I love this movie. It definitely 80s nostalgia feel for sure.
Oh yeah.
The budget was a lot higher for this. I'm assuming for the robots, but it was $800,000.
Damn, really?
Yeah.
Damn.
But I'm assuming it probably took a lot to use those robots because I've never actually seen those in a mall, so they definitely just invented those for this movie.
Yeah, that's true, too.
I've never actually seen those.
Yeah, that whole idea, I think, it's just for the movie alone.
And I mean, it is interesting because it's if you're fighting a robot, you can't shoot them, you can't really kill them.
Yeah, it's the whole Terminator type of thing.
Yeah, they're pretty relentless.
Right.
Definitely just a fun, if you're with a group of friends and you want to watch a fun movie, this is definitely a very, very, very fun movie.
Oh yeah, definitely a fun movie. It's definitely like Night of the Comet kind of vibe, just corny. There's a lot of dancing and stuff like that.
I'm trying to find
the epitome of the 80s.
The reviews on it, see how it did. I thought it was pretty. I mean, the special effects were definitely 80s. It got a 55% on Rotten Tomatoes, 5.6 out of 10 on IMDb. It says 85% of people like this movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad one. It's not really my favorite, but just because I more like the
It's just the
gore
beauty of
80s,
I think, all put into one movie. They're at a mall. Malls were freaking huge back then.
It's
80s
definitely
culture all in a movie.
That's what Barbara Crampton and who else is in it there?
Barbara Crampton.
Scream Queen right there. She's my favorite Scream Queen.
I don't recognize any of these other people. But she was a baby in this, Barbara Crampton.
No, yeah, it's she was in Reanimator, From Beyond. She was in You're Next. She was the mom in You're Next.
Yep. Yeah, she was a baby in this. She was working at the mall. Her dad owned a store or something.
Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely just horny teenagers, staying somewhere, drinking, partying, and then they get killed. I mean, by robots, of course.
Going to the mall. All right, so for my last one,
Your number one.
Yeah, this is probably the best B movie ever made.
I got fighting words for that.
No, this is definitely the best B movie. You've never seen it, so you can't.
I got fighting words.
Oh, God, no, not that. So it's 1984's The Toxic Avenger. So this movie is dubbed a American superhero black comedy splatter film.
Is it scary?
No, it's a superhero movie.
Well, this is a scary movie podcast.
It's a splatter film.
Oh, okay, splatter.
Directed by Michael Hers and Lloyd Kaufman. So anybody that I'm sure a lot of people know this movie and know about Trauma Productions and Lloyd Kaufman. He's the god of B movies in the 80s. I mean, he made Frankenhooker, Class of Nukem High.
Frankenhooker's a good one. We should have done that too.
Yeah, exactly. He's just the king of B movies, and obviously the greatest B movie of all time, Toxic Avenger. So basically, I love the title too for the movie poster. He was 98 pounds of solid nerd until he became the Toxic Avenger. I just love it. So it starts out with this kid, Melvin Junko III. He's 98-pound janitor that works at this health club in Tromaville, New Jersey. And that's the thing with Lloyd Kaufman's movies. They're always set in Tromaville, kind of like Stephen King with Derry and stuff like that. In Tromaville, New Jersey. And so he works at this house club. He's a janitor, Melvin is. And there's a group of and everybody in Tromaville is a criminal or has criminal intentions.
Right.
And there's a group of these kids there that are always constantly pick on Melvin and make fun of him. And he is a dorky looking kid, and they bully him and everything like that. And then one day they trick Melvin into putting on a pink tutu and like they kind of want him to play like 7 Minutes in Heaven, and they like put him in a room, but there's really a sheep in the room. It's not a girl, and he's like, yeah, and they turn the lights on and everything, so he freaks out. And they're like chasing him, like laughing at him and everything. Aww. It's actually kind of sad. It like kind of like made me tear up a little bit because like this is terrible. And then he falls out of a window into a vat of toxic waste.
Of course, there's a lot of toxic waste.
Sitting next to the side of the health club.
There's so many like regulations.
And it causes him to burst into flames. And he's running down the street. He's still in this pink tutu and everything like that. And then like eventually he somehow ends up like running to his house. And jumps in the bathtub, but the chemicals have transformed into like a 6'8" supersized human with like superhuman strength. And then basically after that, he becomes a superhero. He just like he like knows when crime's gonna happen. He starts showing up, and it's super gory. Like he'll kill these people, like rip their arms off, and like or push their head down in their body, and their guts will spill out all over the street. It's just over the top, and it's actually it was really well received. It got like a 6.8 on IMDb.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I think like it's 78% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah, that's actually not bad.
And it's definitely a cult movie. I mean, it's kind of huge. I'm a trauma head. I love trauma movies. But yeah, basically that's all the movie is him going to fight off crime, and it's kind of a cool concept because he's a monster, but he's fighting off crime. I mean, he's mutant as hell looking, So yeah, that's my number one. Definitely go give it a watch if you have not seen it. You will not be disappointed. It's actually a really good movie, and it's not like your typical horror film. It's actually a monster doing something good, cleaning up the streets at Tromaville.
So for my number one, I picked one of my favorite scary movies ever, and definitely my favorite B movie. I picked Bunny Man.
Oh God!
Which I would argue this is the best B movie.
No.
At least I would say like the 2000s.
Yeah, I'll give you that, I guess. Yeah.
Because I think 80s were definitely huge for B movies.
Yes.
But I would say after the 2000s and like the 90s, 2000s era, I would say the Bunny Man is the best B movie. I love this movie. Same thing. Found it on Chiller. Mm-hmm. This movie came out in 2011, and it's also known as the Bunny Man Massacre, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It is a man in a bunny suit carrying around a chainsaw and just causing terror. Yeah. And it's almost like Jeepers Creepers kind of, but with a bunny man. Like he drives a pickup truck somehow. Like he has a whole pickup truck. There's a group of teenagers. He kind of runs them off the road. But I mean, the kills in this movie are great. There's one part where he takes a girl and he like wraps a chain around her waist and then wraps the other part of the chain to his truck and drives away. And it basically, like, splits her in half.
Rips her in half, yeah.
I mean, the kills in this movie are great. The special effects are pretty good. She gets pretty much, like, ripped in half, and her bowels, like, she gets disemboweled. It's all over the ground, and it looks pretty realistic.
Oh, for sure.
But he never speaks. Like, he's a great slasher. Never speaks, just, cuts people up with a chainsaw.
Yeah. It is kind of iconic, too, with the whole Bunny Man thing. It's like that Cabin Fever kind of vibe where she sees the bunny when she's going into the hospital.
Yes. Like, you're watching it, and you're like, if this was me right now and a guy was chasing me in a bunny costume, you could be like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, this guy's chopping me to pieces, and he's in a bunny costume. Yeah. And I'm talking, like, full-blown Easter Sunday bunny costume. Yeah. Like, cheesy as hell. I mean, he cuts this one girl, he hacks her up, and then there's one part where he goes, after he cuts her up with a chainsaw, he goes home and he has, like, family. He has, like, a mom and a dad. He sits down and they cut up and they start to eat her flesh. So he's a cannibal, too. Yeah. But then, like, he won't take his mask off. So he's, like, trying to eat, but he won't take his mask off. And then it pretty much just ends and they go to the second movie. But the main girl, there's a final girl, and that's her name's Rachel. And she wounds Bunny Man, and he's, like, shown walking off into the sunset, and she says, we're going to need a lot of therapy. And then the credits roll. Then there's a second movie, and she's in it as well, and it's also called Bunny Man Vengeance. And it came out in 2017, which is a bop, honestly. And, what did I see? I was reading the reviews about this. Somebody said they described the film as idiotic. Everything that happens in Bunny Man happens wrong, like a bitter, out-of-date Easter egg. I said it's a shiny, pretty on the outside and sickening under the foil, like an Easter egg.
Sure.
Somebody said it's the worst film I've seen in years, decades even. Why? It's simply appalling on every level.
That's funny.
Somebody said it's a Grindhouse movie. It's like Grindhouse.
Yeah, definitely Grindhouse. I get that vibe from it. Just like over the top with the gore and just kind of making no sense. And
Yeah.
Very poorly produced.
I found somebody online that said, gave it 5 stars and said this movie is an absolute masterpiece. Long story short, would definitely recommend.
Right.
20% on Rotten Tomatoes, 3 out of 10 on IMDb. I mean, just a great, great movie. I highly recommend watching it. Yeah, I love this movie. I saw it on Chiller for the first time, and I was like, oh, Bunny Man, that sounds interesting.
I know, it is. I mean, it is good. I mean, it's, I think, a good, like, one-time watch, and then maybe, like, 10 years later, watch it again, and just be like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that movie.
I know. My mom came home when I was watching it, and she was like, this is the dumbest movie, and I was like, you don't understand it. Like, it's Bunny Man. You don't understand.
You don't get it.
It's a higher level of horror.
I know, that's what I tell my mom. Like, you just don't understand.
You don't understand.
She's like, what the hell are you watching? Why is there just, like, a bunch of topless women getting eaten by cannibals? Like, you just don't get it.
No, that's what's so cool about B movies and like lower budget movies is they're just unique like that. You know, you can appreciate them for what they are.
Yeah.
They don't pretend to be more than what they are. You know.
I know, and I was gonna do some cannibal, like the Italian cannibal movies because they are like the epitome of B movies. But I think we'll do a whole episode on cannibal
movies. Yeah.
So that'll be probably one of the episodes coming up here.
Yeah. So we'll be back next week, but until then,
stay spooky, guys.
Stay spooky.